Standardized tests, something students do from the time they start school to the time they graduate. But why? Why do we have standardized tests? And what kind of impact does it have on the students themselves? According to research and belief, standardized testing have a negative impact on education and students, and here's why.
A big impact on students and education is how standardized testing creates a cultural bias, such as discrimination. From how algorithms discriminate based on the day-to-day life. Discrimination persists in many people's lives, based on a variety of social identifiers. Some jurisdictions legally protect people from differential treatment on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, national origin, immigration status, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and age. Less obvious social categories can also be sensitive, however, including parenthood, military service, political party, socioeconomic status, and involvement with the criminal justice system. In a study by Betsy Ann Williams et al., it is determined that data can still discriminate even while withholding possible discriminating data. For example, while searching for names on Google, different ads pop up depending on the name. Ads for background checks were more common for names associated with particular races and males. 60% of ads offered for black names mentioned arrest or criminal versus only 48% for white names. Algorithms use data previously collected to make inferences about the data just received. These biases can often be found in official tests. Tests are developed by psychometricians, professionals who study the testability of questions, and are often compared to older tests, which would ask questions full of race, class, and gender biases. Due to the tests themselves, students are divided in school where scores are used to determine placement.
Test scores favor wealthier students is one of the subtitles for the article Standardized Test Discriminates Against the Minority and Lower Income Students. The first line of this section is ACT and SATs put low-income and minority students at a significant disadvantage, which is because people with lower income scales are less able to pay for standardized tests or get to a place that has them. This wouldn't be a problem if colleges looked at high school scores rather than standardized tests. Not only does it make it hard for low-income families to pay for those tests, but low-income schools have a hard time getting certain materials to get those tests accessible to students, or to get the proper tools to help them prepare for these tests.
The Journal of Negro Education by Robert L. Greene and Robert J. Griffin stated that in one study of black fourth graders using Gray's oral reading test, it was found that when the tests were scored according to the regular key, 46% of the errors were made by the total group that could be attributed to the dialect difference. In public school systems, most minority students face the disadvantage of having to take standardized tests that are culturally biased. Minority children perform poorly on state tests than their non-minority classmates because the tests are usually written by people who are not of minority. In the future, college boards should try finding more people who are of minority compatible with the job to write the test, so it could be fair to all students.
Not only does standardized testing create a bias, but it also affects school funding. A lot of school funding is dependent on standardized test scores, considering that the same grants and funds are inaccessible depending on the school meets the required yearly progress. According to the article, do standardized test scores factor in how much money a school receives? Schools won't be able to get funds if they fail to meet the adequate yearly progress. They also state that a school is consistently failing to meet the adequate yearly progress, standards may not be accessible to some of these grants. They also said after 5 years, if a school fails to meet the AYP or adequate yearly progress, they can be shut down altogether. But what will happen to the people who get shut down in these schools? This will be affected with students, staff, and other members who are involved in education programs.
The article public school fundings and sponsors says there are obvious scales and findings in educated children in schools rather than at home. It is widely recognized that the quality of the community public schools increases local poverty. As a student lives in a disadvantaged community probably attends a bad school, but compared to another student that lives in a suburban area probably attends a good school. So the local funding of these schools, the local funding that goes into these schools could help a disadvantaged neighborhood turn into a suburban area.
School funding also affects social classes. Class-based biases are formed when schools cannot afford standardized testing. Parents who can move their students to different schools who can pay for the tests themselves, give extra opportunities to their children, and end up separating them from the poorer students. The poorer students are stuck in the cycle of being unable to take the tests, while the more economically sound students take the test and continue to get the school's day right funding.
All public schools get funding from the government for annual achievement tests, measuring student knowledge which can alter the fund the school has access to. The tying of funding to school performance may mean that poorly performing schools actually have access to fewer resources that students may be sent to schools in other cities. Standardized tests are not always a sufficient measure of what a student has learned, so tying funding to performance could fairly punish some schools and teachers. According to Van Thompson in the article, do standardized tests factor in how much money a school receives?
How a student's environment can affect standardized testing. Where you live, what school you attend, your transportation to the school, your condition inside the school, surroundings have a great impact. Your surroundings have a great impact on standardized testing. Students need a quiet zone of comfort to feel able to succeed on their tests. Test scores are influenced by out-of-school factors. Some schools may provide certain factors for students which may have a negative impact on their testing. The article, The High Stakes in the Classroom, High Stakes on the Street, Effects of Community Violence on Students' Standardized Testing Performance, states that living in poor or disadvantaged residential environment reduces educational attainment and lower test scores with a large effect for children exposed to disadvantaged environments for a longer period of childhood. So a student coming from a harsh environment may end up getting a lower test score than a student living in a peaceful environment. These standardized testing are based on a knowledge that a student has, not looking at what may impact them outside of school. So how can a student do well on standardized testing if they are mentally, emotionally, and physically affected by their environment?
There's a lot of ways that an environment can affect a student. For example, if you are living at home with little money and can't afford that type of stuff, the stress can get to you. The responsibilities and the worries that come with that stress also include that. But it can only cause stress, but not only can it cause stress, but the type of funding a school has can create a lack of supplies and resources for the students. In the article, Complicated Correlations Between Poverty and Lower Test Scores, stating that poverty can bring on additional stress for students, as well as make concentration more difficult and reduce learning when you're under a lot of stress. There we go. These statements help back up the idea that stress affects you when you learn. And because of this, your environment is impacting you and your test scores become lower. For example, the article also states stress stemming from living in poverty can contribute factors to lower test scores. Despite what some people might think, students and environment have big impact on learning. Not having money to create a better learning environment or provide tools for learning can make it difficult for students to do their best.
How random events during standardized tests affect your score and income. By Max Einstein stated, one recent study found that students performed worse on reading tests in a week after a violent crime was committed near the school. After a violent crime was committed near the school, this meaning the scores the students got aren't accurate because they over-rely on academic scores. In the future, if we rely on standardized tests, students who live in a neighborhood with more crimes compared to students who don't will have a less chance of getting into advanced classes, getting into a good college, and having a successful future.
As a result of our research about standardized testing, we've decided on the following potential solutions: data mining and lowering the pressure put on tests. Exploratory discrimination aware data mining, or DADM, is a process which shows potential discrimination to be put under further analysis. It is a process which should be developed by the Fairness, Accuracy, and Transparency in Machine Learning Organization. According to how algorithms discriminate based on data they lack, in particular, creators of algorithmic systems have three general classes of approaches to prevent discrimination. They can make the data less biased beforehand, build fairness criteria into the algorithm, or alter the application of the rules after the algorithm runs. This would provide more fairness in the test itself, preventing biases from coloring questions and answers. By preventing test biases, we can reduce cultural and social divides that take place due to test scores.
Back to the question I asked, how can students do well in standardized testing if they are mentally, emotionally, and physically affected by their environment? environment has a huge impact on learning, and not having the resources to create a better learning environment can make it difficult to succeed. The article, The High Stakes in the Classroom, High Stakes on the Street, the Effect of the Community Violence on Students Standardized Testing Performance states, whereas most students are exposed to some type of nonviolent crime in their homes, violent crimes are relatively rare and are likely to be significantly more traumatic. Environmental factors that could make standardized testing successful for students is making a comfort zone for them before going into these advanced tests. The article, Standardized Testing by States, says even a well-prepared student can feel pre-test anxiety. Encourage a child to relax and view the test as a chance to show what they have learned. Reassure them that it is natural to feel a little nervous and that is an important thing for them to try their best. If a student cannot provide this practice for themselves, schools should take their standardized testing more seriously and tell students what happens before they go into the standardized testing, and they should stop putting so much pressure on these testings.
As you can see, standardized testing has impacts on students in a negative way. However, there are many things we can do to change these factors that are creating a negative impact. The few ways that we can do that is improving standardized tests and how they present the format of the testing. Not every student has the ability or resources to succeed on the tests that are huge, that has a huge impact in their life. So we need to be able to provide these resources for those students. Also create less of a reliability on standardized tests to allow access to certain funds.
Thank you.
All right, Maddie,
Yes.
describe how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of your discussions as a group.
So a lot of our content was switched around because we found out that a lot of our claims and stuff also correlated with each other. We each had something to say about that claim. And so we made our presentation kind of a mix of everyone going in there, as well as our solutions definitely changed at the end when we talked about what could be done to fix this. For example, at first I read an article that said merit pay would be good, but after talking with my group, we realized that it would be a terrible idea for that to happen.
Okay. Delaney, what was the strongest counter argument that you ran across?
A lot of the counter arguments I came across was people saying that the tests were very important in determining whether or not people were good enough to go into universities or into colleges, and how it was all about the brain and not about what type of environment or what type of social issues that these students had. And they talked a lot about how it was all about the students' abilities, not where they came from.
Intisar, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem?
Maddie. Because hers was, what?
Funding.
Oh, the funding. Because I didn't know that like schools tied their funding with the academic scores, so I learned a lot about that.
Okay. All right, Zahara, having finished your project, what, if anything, do you consider to be a gap in your team's research that would make you more confident about your conclusions?
Can you repeat that?
Is there a hole in the research? If you had a couple more weeks, you could make it even better. Where is there a hole?
I feel like if we had more time, we could have improved how our performance would have been today. And being that outside of school would probably be more better than how it is right now. And we could have researched more on like other countries, because I researched more on state-wise and